Dear viewers, welcome to the Stories of Hope 24 channel. Settle in comfortably, and let's begin. John parked his car outside his house and made his way upstairs, using the old, creaky elevator. Exhausted, he walked towards his apartment door, opened it slowly, and took off his shoes before heading into the living room. It had been a tough day, and all he wanted was to crash on the couch and sleep. He approached the TV to grab the remote when he noticed the shelf above. That's where John always kept his wallet. 2 days ago, he had withdrawn a large sum of money for his car repairs. However, the wallet wasn't there. Strange, John thought. I haven't moved it. He searched the entire room, then moved on to the next two. As he combed through each one, he thought, maybe I left it in the car. But no, I didn't take it with me. All right. Let's make some tea, he muttered, already on his feet. As he entered the kitchen, there it was, his wallet on the table. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. Opening the wallet, he found only a few coins. Where's the rest of the money? John wondered. And who even put it here? He thought with a hint of humor. Who spent my money without inviting me? The money for the car. Gone. John couldn't shake the question who took the cash. Then he remembered. Today Mrs. Thompson was here, he recalled. She often came to help clean, but John always suspected she was more of a watchdog, keeping tabs on him, with the cleaning as a cover. I need to talk to her. John's relationship with his mother-in-law had always been tense. From the start, they disliked each other. The next day, John got in his car and drove to her place. It was only a 15-minute drive. When he arrived, he went up to her apartment and rang the bell. Unlike his mother-in-law, John didn't have a key to her place, though she had made herself a copy of his apartment key the day after his wedding to her daughter. Entering the apartment, he immediately noticed Mrs. Thompson hurriedly packing things into bags and stuffing some clothes into a suitcase. Mrs. Thompson, I need to talk to you, John said, trying to control his irritation. About what? She replied, still packing. About the money, John said bluntly. Mrs. Thompson froze. She looked closely at John, trying to gauge his mood. For a moment, her face tensed, but she quickly regained her composure and said calmly, Yes, John, I took it. John was shocked by her directness. He had been ready to present evidence, but now he didn't know what to say. You took it? He asked, normally so confident, but now struggling to process what he'd heard. Yes, John, I did, she repeated, as if it were no big deal. She continued packing. I've always wanted to go on a trip to the coast. I'm not young anymore and don't know when I'll get another chance. I needed a break, and this was my opportunity. I'm sure Sarah would understand. Her calm and collected tone completely threw John off. He had expected guilt or excuses, not this. Even more baffling was how Mrs. Thompson, his mother-in-law, was simply preparing to leave without telling anyone. Maybe I should get her checked by a doctor, John thought, finding her behavior increasingly strange. It wasn't about the money. He didn't mind her going on vacation. His family wasn't struggling financially. What John couldn't understand were her motives. Trying to keep his temper in check, he decided to dig deeper. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you just ask for the money? He asked, keeping his voice steady. I didn't think you'd understand, she replied, pausing. You've always been so strict and responsible. I didn't want you to judge me. John struggled to contain his anger. He couldn't believe her audacity, but he also sensed there was more to the story. And though the money wasn't as important as improving relations with his mother-in-law, he knew he had to get to the bottom of it. When are you leaving? He asked, trying to keep the conversation calm. Tomorrow morning, she replied, returning to her packing. Do you want me to drive you to the airport? I'll manage, don't worry. Days later, while preparing dinner, John's wife, Sarah, mentioned, we should call Mom and see how she's doing. Sure, go ahead, John agreed. He hadn't told Sarah about the money situation. She was an anxious person, and he wanted to protect her from unnecessary stress. Sarah tried calling several times, but Mrs. Thompson didn't answer. Even in the evening, nothing changed, and Sarah began to worry. John promised her he'd handle it, and Sarah trusted him. He was a man of his word. John drove to Mrs. Thompson's place again, but to his surprise, he saw a familiar figure outside the next building over. It was Mrs. Thompson, and not at the coast. She was deep in conversation with another woman, and didn't notice John. He didn't approach her. Instead, he returned home, telling Sarah that her mother had forgotten her phone charger and would be out of touch for a few days. John needed time to figure things out. Something was off, and he had to uncover the truth. His mother-in-law wasn't on vacation as she claimed. He suspected she was hiding something serious. The next morning, John took the day off and returned to her neighborhood. He parked on the opposite side of the street, waiting. After about half an hour, Mrs. Thompson emerged from a nearby building. While she searched her bag for keys, John quietly followed her into the building. She went up to the third floor and disappeared into an apartment. What is she doing here? John wondered. He decided to knock on the door of the neighboring apartment to gather information. A young man answered. "Hi, sorry to bother you," John began. "I'm looking for an older woman." The man quickly understood. "You must mean Mrs. Thompson. She's renting the apartment next door for the past few days." John thanked him and walked away, even more confused. Why is she renting an apartment when she has her own right next door? He realized a confrontation was inevitable. He knocked on her door, and she opened it almost immediately, as if she had been expecting him. "John." Mrs. Thompson's face paled. She knew what was coming. "It's time we talked," he said firmly. Without waiting for an invitation, he stepped inside. The apartment was small but cozy. "What's going on?" John asked directly. "And don't lie to me. You said you were going to the coast, yet you're still here. You took the money, rented this place, and now you're avoiding calls. Tell me everything. I can help." Mrs. Thompson was silent. John waited, giving her time to collect herself. Eventually, she began to cry. The tears surprised him. His mother-in-law had always been tough. "I didn't know how to tell you," she finally said. "I couldn't even bring myself to tell Sarah." John braced himself for the explanation, his mind racing through various possibilities, but he could see how much she was struggling, so he gently took her hand. "You can tell me. I'm here to help, not to judge." With that, Mrs. Thompson opened up. "It all started a few months ago. I fell victim to a scam." She explained how she had been contacted by a so-called financial advisor from a reputable bank, who convinced her to take out loans for high-return investments. She had lost everything. "How much debt are we talking about?" John asked, staying calm. "A lot. I even transferred them all my savings. How could I tell Sarah? It would break her." Mrs. Thompson bit her lip, and John hugged the distressed woman. "From now on, don't hide anything from me. You should have told me right away. I'm family too. I could have helped," he added. "But why did you rent this apartment?" "I couldn't stay in my own place anymore. The debt collectors started showing up. They've been harassing me. One day, they filled my door lock with glue. I had to disappear." "You're safe now," John assured her. Despite their strained relationship, no one had the right to torment his family. John's anger flared, but he knew blaming her wouldn't help. She had suffered enough. It was time to protect his mother-in-law. He would find a way to help her out of this mess. After all, he was the head of the family. "I'll take care of everything. Don't worry. But from now on, you need to be honest with me." Mrs. Thompson nodded, grateful. The relief on her face was clear. It was as though a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She never expected her son-in-law to be the one to offer her a lifeline. For so long, she had believed that John was too harsh, not a good match for her daughter. But now, she saw that he was a true protector. And John did help. He hired lawyers who fought off the debt collectors, ensuring they no longer harassed Mrs. Thompson. Eventually, she was able to move back to her own home,